Why should any American care about what's happened in Finland? After all, it's a long way away. Nordic country up there where it's cold. Why should we care what's happened there?
Well, I think we need to care about what's happened in a lot of places that have turned their education systems around in the last 30 or 40 years. We used to be number one in the 1970s, hands down, the U.S. education system. And we've been sort of peddling in place while other nations have been putting together a 21st century system. So we need to understand what Finland, Singapore, Korea, and some other countries have done. Each of those countries is about the size of a state in the U.S. Singapore is about the size of Kentucky. Finland is about the size of Minnesota in terms of the population. And states are where the action is in American education. So we can learn some things about how to create a system that works.
Are you surprised that Finland has been able to turn it around fairly dramatically in just 40 years? Singapore's turned it around in 35, 40 years. Are you surprised as a professional educator that that's true?
Well, I think it is surprising to many of us. These are places that 40 years ago, in many cases, had very few people educated, had a non-system. So it does wake you up. It makes you say, well, what's going on over there?
And that person who might be watching and listening says, well, this is all mildly interesting. But these are smaller countries. We in the United States of America have a big continental, two-ocean country, a rich mix of religion, race, ethnicity. What happens in Finland, Singapore, South Korea may apply there, but it's pretty hard to apply it here. You would say what?
I would say two things. Number one, there are also some very large high-achieving nations like Canada and Australia that have systems like ours with many states and many provinces. They figured it out too. I'd say that all of those places are doing very similar things. And we need to be studying and learning from those who are having success. And third, I would say it's a global world. And we are in global competition. There is nobody who's going to succeed in the United States of America if they don't understand that they're not competing with the kid down the hall or around the corner, but with somebody who's right now going to school in any one of these countries around the world.
And if we, the people of the United States, do not do something and do something fairly quickly, what are the consequences for us?
Well, if we don't create a higher quality system for all kids, we do well with some kids, but we have great inequality. We're going to continue to become, as the New York Times said some months ago, a prison nation. We've got 1 in 100 people incarcerated. We can't afford our healthcare system. We can't afford our Social Security system unless every single person in this country is prepared to get a good job in the knowledge economy that we're in today. Education is not a private good, it's a public good. What that means is that we all benefit and we all hurt, depending on the quality of education other people's kids get. What happens as a result? Well, we're building now a school-to-prison pipeline. We've quadrupled the number of young people in prison. We are spending 900% more on corrections than we were 30 years ago, while our public school dollars have gone up much less. What that means is that you as a taxpayer are paying in California almost $50,000 a year on inmates that you wouldn't spend $10,000 a year to get educated so that they would be able to get a good job. Most inmates are high school dropouts, and most are functionally illiterate. So it's really an education problem, and I don't want to be paying taxes for the results of a kid not having gotten a great teacher to teach him to read in 3rd grade.
Well, looking at Finland in particular, but drawing your knowledge of places like South Korea, Singapore, Canada, and Australia, what one thing stands out in your mind as common?
Well, I actually see 2 or 3 things in common. One is that they do all have this equitable level playing field. They invest in schools equitably. But number 2, they all require that teachers be very highly selected and very well prepared. Teaching is rocket science. It is really hard to teach all kids well, given the range of the kind of intellectual demands, the kinds of diversity that we have. So teachers really need the kind of education that will allow them to be successful. And they do that across the board. Whereas we do it unequally. We have some great training and some lousy training, and people kind of find their way through. And the third thing they do is they organize the curriculum today around what we think of as 21st century skills. Critical thinking, problem solving, analysis, synthesis, the ability to research things and learn to learn and put things together, in addition to the traditional content area subjects. And their assessments are open-ended, project-based. They don't use multiple choice tests. They expect people to be able to put their ideas out there and defend their ideas and use evidence and solve complex problems. So they're focusing on the future. And a lot of our curriculum and testing system is focused on the past.
Do we not focus too much on testing?
We focus way more on testing than any country in the world. If it moves, we test it.
Is that true? More than anybody else does?
We do. Every child, every year, in grades 3 through 8, plus at least 1 year in high school. Many states like California, kids will take 32 tests before they get to the SAT, the ACT, the International Baccalaureate, the AP, all of that. We are the most tested and the least examined kids in the world.
Getting back to Finland in particular, it surprised, yea, amazed me to find, and I think it would many people in the audience, they do teach art.
Everywhere.
Teach things like cooking, carpentry, mechanics, recess. That is, kids get out of the classroom and exercise. But how do they do this in one school day?
Well, they think about really the whole child, right? Building a whole human being who will be effective in all the parts of their lives and who will be able to build on those skills. And one of the things that's very interesting, there's a lot of emphasis on music, a foreign language. In Finland and many other countries, kids are learning 3 foreign languages. They're learning at least 3 languages in elementary school when their brains are very open to learning language. Well, all of those things that they're doing are building the cognitive muscle. They're building the way that the brain works to be able to do other things. Right. So what we know about people who have a lot of musical training, you'll see this in a lot of Asian countries too, is that the patterns they're learning in music translate over to math. And when they're learning languages, the mental flexibility that they're gaining is allowing them to use their native language much more prolifically and to learn a variety of other things more easily. So these things that we think of as frills are at the core of building an active, able mind that not only can enjoy other people and communicate and have artistic abilities, but also can do the core subjects in more flexible ways.
When people think about Finland and think of our own school system and how it's declining in international ratings, what's the thing you want foremost in their mind?
I want people to think, when they think about Finland, to think about what it might be like to be purposeful about building a system in which there's a level playing field for all kids, in which teachers and school leaders are well prepared and well supported to do this hard and important work, and in which there's a vision for what we want kids to know and be able to do that is empowering with respect to how they're going to be able to learn and use their knowledge to solve these complex problems we have in our world today. When people think about the United States, I also want them to know that we have some of the best schools in the world in this country. Our challenge as Americans is to really bring up the rest of the system, to value every child in every community as much as we value those who are getting the best we have to offer. And that's how we're going to continue to be the leader of the free world.